So welcome everyone to one of the afternoon breakouts. Today we're very blessed to have Wendy Saunders with us. She's actually launched her new training and consulting company, Compassionate Leaders, LLC, just in July. So good timing to do that because we're able to have her with us. But she's not a stranger to the Y. She's actually worked with the YMCA for the YMCA of the USA for a little while. And actually before that was with Los Angeles, Metropolitan Los Angeles YMCA as well as an executive director. So I think we're in for a treat today to be able to really think about mindfulness for Y leaders in these challenging times. And I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you, Lisa and Derek and the whole planning committee for inviting me to be part of your virtual conference this year. It's an honor for me to be asked to be part of this and to have the opportunity to share some content that is really powerful and meaningful for me around mindfulness. This is something, so Lisa mentioned that I worked for YUSA for a number of years. I was in the leadership development department, leading New Branch Executive Institute and Leadership Symposium and some other programs. And one of the things that kept coming up in those programs is mindfulness. And so I worked with, over the years, literally thousands of employees, leaders, and so on mindfulness related topics. And I'm also a certified instructor through Emory University for a program called Cognitively Based Compassion Training. That's a mouthful, but essentially I'm certified to teach a program that helps to cultivate mindfulness and compassion. And so this is something that I've been doing a lot of for YMCAs around the country over the last 7 months or so, because this is a pretty stressful and challenging time, isn't it? So folks have been wanting these types of offerings for staff and also for members. So I'm very happy to be here with you all today, and I look forward to hearing about mindfulness in your worlds. But first, I wanted to just take a couple of moments here to acknowledge, right, that we have had a very tough year. And that you, each of you and myself have made it through these last 9 months since COVID-19 started. And it's really been a change in so many parts of our world. The health concerns that we've all been concerned with for ourselves or for our family members or for our neighbors or friends, for our family, our kids, the massive home life disruption that has taken place in terms of working from home, in terms of kids having school from home, and the list goes on. The massive Y disruption that we've all been facing, right? Lots of changes in the Y, facility and program closures, furloughs and layoffs. You may have been furloughed yourself, you may have been laid off yourself and brought back. You may have had to do these things with your staff. You might be doing them right now. I'm not sure in Florida, but I know in other parts of the country, they're already furloughing folks again as closures happen. And we've had to pivot and respond in unique ways, right, to try to meet the emerging needs of this time. And this is on top of a significant, sort of uprising around racial and social inequities, around the unrest going on in our country and increasing awareness around these inequities, which is also highlighting a change in the level of divisiveness in our country, where we're becoming more divided and more polarized, and we're going to talk more about that later on. Then natural disasters have been coming our way. You know, I live in Southern California. We are still in our fire season, but some of you may have been dealing with hurricanes this year and other types of disasters. And then we have a presidential election that seems to be carrying on continually for months on end, right? So this is all on top of regular daily life, the ups and downs of daily life. So I just want to invite each of us to take a moment to just say, hey, you know what? I'm here. I showed up to this seminar. It's been a very tough year, but congratulate yourself. You know, maybe have a little gratitude in this moment for making it through these past 9 months, which have been really tough. And to that end, I want to ask you, how is your mind today? And I love this graphic. So I'm going to ask you all now to use your chat box feature. Okay. And I love the chat box. So I hope you will all participate with me. Use your chat box and let me know, just how's your mind today? Is your mind full? Got a lot of things going on, a lot of thoughts swirling around, maybe emotions too, or mindful. And so I love this. I can't take any credit at all for this graphic, but I love it. This person goes out for a walk with their dog, right? And the person, rather than being in touch with nature and really enjoying their surroundings, is busy in their mind, right? Thinking and planning and worrying and remembering and those types of things. And the dog is like, oh, it's such a beautiful day. Look at the trees, look at the sun. So I'm looking for your chat box notes now. Yes, okay, it's starting to come in, thank you. All right, we've got mind full, very full, a little bit of both, very nice, somewhere in the middle. Very good, yes, keep those coming in and thanks for participating, I really appreciate that. So we're gonna talk about what this is, what does it mean really to be mindful? And so this program that I teach through Emory University, I'd like to share the cognitively based compassion training program. We offer a definition of mindfulness that I want to share with you today. So mindfulness is actively staying aware and retaining your attention fully in the present moment and not allowing your attention to drift off to something else. So in the example with the dog and the person going for a walk, right? The dog's attention is right there in the present moment, looking at the trees, the squirrels, right? The birds going by, and their attention may go to different things, but it's all right there in the present. So being mindful is actively staying aware and consciously keeping your attention fully focused and not where your mind is somewhere else. This is the desk placard that's on executive desks for Humana Health Company, if you're familiar with Humana. Be here now. It's about being here in this moment. So maybe ask yourself right now, how present are you with me right now on this webinar? Is your attention fully here? Or is your attention partially here and partially on something else? Are you paying attention fully? Is your attention right here in the present moment? Or is your mind thinking about other things, planning, right? Thinking about the session you attended earlier. So when we're not being mindful, a lot of times we're on autopilot. And so for clarity, I want to offer that autopilot can be a very good thing, and it's something that's necessary in our lives. We need to be able to walk on autopilot and look for our keys, right? We need to be able to do multiple things at once where we don't have to think about it. But the reality in our time is that we are on autopilot for a lot of things that perhaps we shouldn't be on autopilot for. And so I want to run through some examples. And it's at this point, I want to invite you to use the chat box as I go through these examples. You can leave a little note, to say, yeah, that happened to me or something like that, right? So I'll be looking for your participation. So are you fully present and aware, fully in the present moment with the people around you and with your surroundings when you are looking through your phone or scrolling through, right? So for example, right now, is your phone pretty close by? And if you get a news alert or a Facebook like or a new email or a text, does your attention automatically go on autopilot to your phone? Or are you able to stay fully present and aware with me right here, even if alert goes on your phone? So I'm going to ask you all now, if you would, to just share in the chat box if you feel like you're on autopilot when it comes to alerts on your phone, or if you're fully aware and you don't even check. Okay, somebody's saying, I don't even know where my phone is. Very nice, very nice. I like that. Okay. Yeah, autopilot, I'm seeing several of you saying, I would check the notification. Have any of you seen the documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma? And I see only a couple of videos here. So thank you for the nod, Jasmine. Some of you giving a thumbs up. Thank you, Ed, in the participant panel. Wonderful documentary, right? I mean, we are being programmed to be on autopilot when it comes to our phones. But how fully present are we with our family, with our staff, with our colleagues, just being in the moment and doing what we need to do with our work if we're on autopilot? Yeah, thank you for these notes. I see a lot of notes about the social dilemma being a great one. So also, when you're scrolling through your phone, do you sometimes just end up on autopilot, just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, not really fully aware even of how long you're spending scrolling on social media, on Amazon or whatever it might be? All right, next, are you on autopilot, or are you fully present and aware when you're in conversations with other people? So when you're in conversations with your staff, are you fully there, or with your colleagues, or with your family members? Are you fully present with them, or are you kind of distracted? Your mind's other places, so something to think about, and we'll talk a lot more about that later. What about when you're worried about something like your health or a decision that you need to make, or maybe worried about the election or whatever it might be, right? When you're worried, how fully present are you able to be with the people that are around you? So you think of a time when you were really caught up in your mind or caught up in your emotions. This is an example of not being fully mindful, because you're on that autopilot, that spiraling, sense of worry and cyclical thoughts. Okay, this is a good one. And I'm wondering how many of you will be willing to admit that something like this has ever happened to you. Have you ever driven on autopilot? Now, I'm going to admit that I have gotten to my destination, and this hasn't happened often, but it's happened a few times in my life, and thought to myself, I don't even remember driving there. Has anybody ever had that happen before? Do you know that feeling? I mean, how scary is that? And what was at risk? I see all the yeses coming through very fast. Yes, because we're literally driving on autopilot. And how scary and potentially dangerous might that be? Or when you're on the freeway, right? And you miss the exit because you just weren't paying attention. You just weren't fully present and aware of your driving. Your mind is somewhere else. Okay, next one. How about when you're responding to your spouse, your partner, your kids, a colleague, but you're responding on autopilot? Yeah, right. Do you see what I'm saying, right? You're just responding in a way that's on autopilot. It's not that you're fully there, fully present, really listening. And we're going to talk about mindful listening later, but anybody willing to admit that they respond to maybe certain family members on autopilot? And then they're like, are you really listening to me? Oh, thank you. I love the notes coming in the chat box. So my daughter lets me know if I'm on autopilot. Yeah, exactly. Our family members sometimes call us out on those things. Yeah. How about this? When you're feeling emotionally exhausted, frustrated, angry, sad, fearful, when you get caught in some of these emotions, are you able to be fully present and aware with your work, with your staff, with your family, or are you just on autopilot, being in that emotion, getting caught up in the emotion, This is the reality of how our minds work. A lot of times they just like to have a mind of their own. They start thinking and worrying and getting caught up in emotions, and we're no longer in control. It's on autopilot. All right, one more. How about, are you fully present and aware when you're not staying in line with an intention or a purpose that you set for yourself? So let's say you want to eat healthy, or you want to bring kindness to the people around you, right? Are you aware when you're not staying in alignment with that, in alignment with that intention? Or are you just going by on autopilot instead of doing what you really, really wanted to do? It's just another example. All right, so here's another opportunity for the chat box. Could you share, and I would love if one or two people would be willing to share with the whole group verbally also, how have you personally found that autopilot could be detrimental to you or to the people around you? Would anybody be willing to share? Do you have a story or an example of a time? It could be something very simple. I mean, some of you are sharing right now that your family members are like, hey, right here with me. Would anybody be willing to share?
I can elaborate on the story with my daughter if you want.
Thank you, Julie. I would love that. Thank you.
Just simply, she's 21, so she's not a little girl. And I was just pointing out that she was always on her phone when I was trying to talk to her. And I think she used that as a call to action. And she has now, if I'm not paying attention fully, and usually for me, it's actually reading, not on the phone, but she tends to talk a lot. So I'll glance down at the page and she'll tell me, Mom, are you listening or are you just waiting for me to finish? And I'll be, it calls me And I said, oh, you're right. I'm not fully paying attention, but the story is going on a while, but it's okay. She deserves the respect. If I'm going to listen, then I actually listen. So it happens.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it's nothing for us to be ashamed about. I mean, our minds have been working this way for a very long time. We start tuning people out. We just kind of go back onto autopilot and aren't really fully present. But I mean, the impact is on your daughter, right? Here, your daughter is like, hey, she's not feeling cared for, right? She's not feeling like someone's paying attention to her, that her mom, that she really wants to be paying attention. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I love this story here. It's horrible when your daughter calls you out and you're doing the Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have a story to share in terms of how this autopilot has been detrimental? Anybody notice this with your staff? I've done so many of these workshops over the years, and I've had people say that they have the Apple Watch, and on the Apple Watch, it gives you notifications for emails and things like this. And so if this person that did one of my workshops said, hey, if there's one thing I took away from your workshop, it's that I need to turn off the notifications on my Apple Watch, because I know that as I'm in meetings with my staff, if I'm getting an email, I'm looking at the watch every time that notification goes off. I mean, and this is the reality. It's the reality of how, these social media, programs and our devices are capturing our attention in a way that's keeping us from really being fully present. And there's some harmful impacts of that. I want to ask you just one more thought on this. When you're worried, when you're caught up in worries, when you're caught up in certain, negative emotions, what is the impact of that on you, right? What is the impact of that? Does it make you feel stressed? Does it make you feel, not so good physically? There are a lot of, does it make you feel anxiety? And so, I mean, there are actual physical impacts of these types of autopilot thought processes and emotional processes that we could be paying attention to, right? And so that's part of the beauty of mindfulness, is that this is a way that we can start to bring our attention more to when these things are happening and not be caught in that autopilot mode. And when things are challenging and things are stressful, mindfulness can be really useful. So how do we know, though, for sure, how do we really know that becoming more mindful is going to help us manage stress? I want to offer to you that universities have been studying this for a very long time. Part of the reason that universities studied this is because they have very stressed out students. So I know some of you have college-age children, and you might know or have had college-age children. And of course, many of us were college-age children at one point, but university life and the pressure of studies and grades and all of it goes along with that can be extremely stressful. And universities have found that their students are very, very stressed. And some of them to the point of feeling suicidal and things like that. And so for as long as 30 years, for a few decades, universities have been saying, what can we do to help support our students in a way that can help them lower their stress levels and be able to thrive, in the university setting? And so the very first university in the country to have a Center for Mindfulness was University of Massachusetts Medical School. And they are known for having created one of the most popular mindfulness programs that exists, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, if you're familiar with that. And they've been studying it for a very long time, and they've found that mindfulness can be really, really helpful for managing stress and getting out of those worried thoughts, those cyclical thoughts, those, negative emotions, and being able to bring your attention out of that autopilot into the present moment. But they're not the only one. Did you know there's a Center for Mindfulness at UC San Diego, at UCLA, Mindful Awareness Research Center. UPenn has a program for mindfulness. University of Miami has a U Mindfulness Center. University of Wisconsin-Madison has done extensive research on mindfulness through their Center for Healthy Minds. And there are literally dozens of other mindfulness centers across the country: Brown, University of Virginia, Utah, Arizona State, Pittsburgh, and many, many more. And again, they're doing this because They want to provide, ways for their students to lessen the stress and anxiety of college life, but they also recognize that the community at large is stressed and that there are a lot of people that need these types of services. And so they're open to the community. And there are resources at all of these centers that you can access online to help with your stress levels. They've also, as I mentioned, been researching this and doing studies on it to say what is actually going on as people are practicing mindfulness and being more mindful. So one thing that they found is that meditation, mindfulness meditation, there are many types of meditation, by the way, but mindfulness meditation is one way that you can practice or get good at being mindful. So when you dedicate time to train the mind to practice being mindful, it's kind of similar to the way that fitness is a way to get good and to have a body that's more in shape and more in tune. So meditation is a practice where you use a technique like mindfulness to train your attention and awareness to achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state. So we can train the mind to be more mindful. And just as if you were wanting to learn how to play the violin, it would take many hours. It's very similar with mindfulness in that if you want to get really good at being mindful, being present, being able to notice when you're on autopilot and to pull yourself out of that and be in the present moment, that you have to practice and to work out your mind, work out your brain, just like you would be working out your body. So another thing I think that's very interesting for YMCA leaders especially, this is out of NIH, you're probably familiar, they have a National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. And we think back here to 2012, they surveyed tens of thousands of people across the country and said, how many of you are practicing yoga and how many of you practicing meditation? Back in 2012, about 10% of the population was doing yoga. And in 5 years to 2017, it grew 5%. Now look at meditation. Back in 2012, just 4% of the population was doing meditation. But in 5 years, it grew by 10%, almost to the same level as yoga. And why is that? Because people are finding that meditation is really helpful for their inner well-being, for their mental well-being, for their emotional well-being, and that anyone can practice meditation, especially mindfulness meditation, if they have any faith or background, or no faith at all. They can use these simple mindfulness practices in order to feel better in their, mental world and in their emotional world. And of course, there's the rise of mindfulness apps. And thank you. There's a note in the chat box. Check it out if you're interested around mindfulness app. Yeah, there are a lot of apps that people are using and they're finding, this is something I can do. And it's something that's really helpful. So my question for Y leaders is, are we caring for our members' health and mental health, emotional health? And in what ways? Do we have meditation classes? Do we have mindfulness classes? Because we've got yoga, right? All right, so now I'm going to show you a long list of benefits of mindfulness training that these universities have found. And there are literally thousands of studies on mindfulness at this point. I didn't provide the references for all of these, but you're welcome to reach out to me on any one of these, and I'll be happy to send you a series of studies that show what this is all about. But here's what they found: reduce stress, anxiety, and burnout. Those are the #1 things that people are finding as the benefits. Increased focus and productivity, right? It's less mental distraction, that rumination that happens where you're constantly worrying and thinking and planning and figuring out, or feeling overwhelmed, right? I'm really feeling so sad or lonely or angry. Enhance emotional intelligence, higher resilience. Some might find this surprising, but more creativity, better memory, more energy. Heightened decision-making. And in recent years, I'd say the last 5 or 7 years, there've been a number of studies on the benefits of mindfulness in reducing explicit and implicit bias and discrimination. So very interesting research there. It can help you feel more connected, less isolated, more compassionate, more positive, and do more helping behavior, more helping other people, less being concerned for just your own worries, but being more concerned for helping others. And then they've also been monitoring what's happening in the body as people are doing mindfulness. And they're showing it's lowering cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone. elevating the immune system, reducing inflammation, changing the way the amygdala works, which is the fight or flight center of the body, less pain, better sleep. As I mentioned, there are thousands of these studies a year. So anybody find this interesting? Anybody find this surprising that all of this research has been done? I'd be curious to see any notes in the chat box. Thanks for having those come in here. Yeah. So the good news about this is that we can practice mindfulness in infinite ways. There are many, many ways to get good at being more mindful. Every moment of your day is an opportunity. So let's check back in with you right now. How many of you are fully with me right here, right now, fully mindful and present with this webinar? You can give me a thumbs up. You can give me a note in the chat box. Or if you noticed that you've been distracted, has your attention been drawn to something else? Have you looked at your phone? Are you looking at your email? Yeah, thank you all. I see the notes coming in. A lot of you are with me. Thank you. I love it. Very good. But it's okay. I mean, it's okay if you notice that your attention has been drawn somewhere else. You can bring it back, right? That's being mindful, continually sustaining your attention, bringing it back if you've noticed that it's wandered off. So I'm going to share some examples of ways throughout your day that you can be practicing bringing your attention in that present moment. One is in every conversation, right? Every socially distanced masked conversation that you're having is an opportunity to be fully present. Am I fully here with this person and with this conversation and with what's being said and with the, watching for emotion and all these things? Or am I not really fully there, thinking about what I'm going to say, thinking about something else? How about with your family, right? With your kids, are you fully there? Every single time they're telling a story, Julie, right? Are you fully present? That's an opportunity to practice getting good at being more mindful. Now, this one may seem strange to some of you, but mindful eating is something that people do. And in fact, Google, the company Google, is known for doing mindful lunches where they're literally it's silent lunches, no chatter, no distraction, but just really being present with the food. So it's literally noticing the flavors of the food, the texture, the temperature, really just being present and not allowing your mind to go planning and thinking and remembering, because this is what our mind is doing on autopilot all the time. It's constantly doing other things instead of just enjoying the moment. So every time you eat, you could be really paying attention, really being present. Driving, as we talked about, another great example. Every time you drive, practice, practice, practice. I had someone in a workshop years ago who she lost a child. And she had a lot of grief and guilt. And she would say that if there was one thing that would help me pull my attention into the present moment, it was to just notice my hands on the steering wheel while I'm driving. And it's just that, what is it that can help you bring you into that moment, right? And out of your mind and out of the worry and out of the rumination about the things going on in your life. All right, another one. Now, this is another funny one for some of you maybe, but for me, I notice that when I take a shower, my mind tends to be thinking and planning and spiraling out on things. This is just the way it's been doing it for my whole life. And so it's really a time for me to practice being fully present when I'm showering. Am I just enjoying the water and the texture of the soap in my hair or whatever it might be? Or am I busy thinking and planning and I hardly remember even having a shower, right? So these are just some examples of ways that you can bring more mindfulness into your day and to practice. The opportunities are endless. It's in every moment. It's in this moment right now. Are you fully here? I love, someone said, I don't know if I see it here, but the video is helping keep you accountable, right, to this webinar, as opposed to doing what your mind wants to do, going off to other things. Thanks for sharing that. Someone else saying, yeah, I didn't even notice that I ate, right? Yeah, as you were eating, you were busy thinking, your facility director was doing other things, and so you were busy with them and not really fully present with the eating. Thanks for these examples. You're bringing a lot of wisdom and experience to this webinar. I appreciate it. All right. So another way that you can get good at being mindful is to dedicate time to train and calm your mind. So, and this is, for example, meditation or doing exercises where you say, you know what, I want to get really good at being mindful. I don't want to get caught in these spirals. I don't want to, you know, have my family members saying, why can't you just be here with me? I don't want my staff to be so annoyed because I'm looking at my Apple Watch all the time, right? Or getting called to social media alerts and things like this. And so you can dedicate time to train and calm your mind and to create a different baseline within you in terms of the ways in which you're present with other people. And so I want to invite you to try, if you're willing, a mindful breathing exercise. In the program I teach, we call it mindfulness of breathing. And essentially, it's bringing your attention to your breath and sustaining your attention, being mindful, actively keeping your attention fully focused on your breath. And if you notice that your mind starts to wander, drift off, start thinking about other things, right? The idea here is that you're training your mind by noticing your mind has wandered off the breath, and then you bring your attention back to your breath or to sensations of breathing. And I'm going to guide you through this. So the idea, I have a spotlight here because it's a common analogy to this kind of mindfulness practice or mindfulness training. And in the literature around it, it's called concentration meditation or focused attention meditation, but it's mindfulness of a particular object, which the most foundational object that we use in meditation is breathing, because you have your breath with you all the time so you can bring your attention to it. So it's like putting a spotlight on the breath. And it's just bringing your attention fully focused on the breath. And then training your mind, noticing and catching your mind if it wanders off and bringing it back. So what do you think? Are you all open to trying a little mindful breathing exercise? We're going to do a very quick one. It'll just be 3 minutes. What do you think? I'm going to look for notes. I see some. Okay. Thumbs up in the, you got, let's do it. Yes, yes. Okay, good, good. I love it. I'm seeing the notes coming in. Awesome. Thanks for the notes. I love the enthusiasm that you all are showing. So this is great. All right. So I'm going to just walk you through a few of the basics and then we'll get started. The first is sitting comfortably. Okay. Now, the idea here is that if you sit in a way that's super uncomfortable or that you're going to be in some sort of pain, you're probably a lot less likely to want to do this again ever, right? So you want to sit comfortably. So you're not going to, you know, for a few minutes, you're not going to be like wanting to shift and move because you're uncomfortable. Now, the other piece of sitting comfortably is that you're not sitting so comfortably that you're just going to fall into a little nap. Because for clarity, mindfulness training and napping are two totally different things. Sleep is not meditation. So you want to sit comfortably, but you see people oftentimes when they're meditating, they're sitting upright. The reason is to stay awake and to stay alert. You want to be able to see what's going on in your mind and to see if your mind is paying attention to your breath. And if you start falling asleep, you can't do that. So you want to sit comfortably, but it's nice to sit upright. It just supports mental alertness. Okay. And if you're tired like me, I don't know how many of you are feeling a little tired. If you think you might be going into a little nap time here, then you want to be sure you sit extra tall. Okay. Next thing. Be gentle with yourself, okay? So your mind has been wandering off and doing its own thing, going on to autopilot for a very long time, for your whole life, basically all of our lives, right? This is the way that, that we have operated. And so I like to make the analogy of bringing your attention to your breath and doing this mindful breathing practice is similar to training a puppy to sit and stay, okay? So I don't know if I have a 2-year-old puppy and he was quite a handful when he was younger. So I have firsthand experience with this. Anybody else trained a puppy before? I'd love to hear about it in the chat box, but it takes a lot of patience and gentleness, doesn't it? So here's how it goes, right? You tell the puppy to sit and stay. The puppy might sit, hopefully, for a short time, and then inevitably the puppy's going to get up and start running around, right? So those of you that know, I'm seeing the chat box messages, and then you have to go and get the puppy and bring it back and say sit and stay, right? And then the puppy might stay again for another little bit, and then it gets up and wanders off. At no time do you scold the puppy, right? Or hurt the puppy or beat the puppy up, right? You're firm, but you're also loving and gentle, sit and stay with the puppy, hopefully, if we're all treating our doggies well, right? So it's very similar with the breath. You're going to say to your attention and to your mind, I want you to focus on the breath and on your breathing. And then inevitably, your mind is going to wander off to something else. Start thinking about something that happened earlier. Start planning for something that's going to happen later, remembering some memory that comes to mind. And this is the way our minds have been working. So as you notice that your mind has wandered off, you just gently bring your attention back to the breath. You don't beat yourself up, don't scold yourself. In fact, it's somewhat of a celebration that you notice that your mind wandered off. And then you have the opportunity to train your mind to be where you want it instead of where it wants to go, like the puppy, right? So whether it happens 10 times or 100 times in the 3 minutes doesn't matter. The idea is that you're bringing your attention to the breath and noticing when your mind wanders off and then bringing it right back. And the more you do that, the more you're training your attention to be where you want it and not where it wants to be. All right. So a couple of other things, I'm going to have these instructions up here, but you don't have to look at this. They'll be here for you if you like it. As you're doing this exercise, we already talked about sitting comfortably, but I'd like to offer that when you're doing meditation, you can close your eyes if you're comfortable, or you don't have to close your eyes. There are many, many long-term meditators that don't close their eyes. They generally do cast them downward so that there's less distraction in their vision, right? In their field of vision. For me, I close my eyes because I need all the help I can get from free of distractions, right? It makes it easier for me to focus my attention on my breathing. But you might just want to cast your eyes downward and try not to look at anything in particular so that you can focus on the breath. That's the only thing that we have going on there with the eyes. So the other thing is what to do with your hands. You can just rest them wherever you want. There's nothing fancy you have to do with your hands. You know, you see some of these, certain types of meditation practices. That's not the case with mindfulness practice. The idea is to put your hands somewhere where you're not going to be distracted by them. So maybe you're going to sit them on your thighs or your knees or fold them in your lap, or just put them somewhere where you're not going to want to move in a minute because you're uncomfortable. So just keeping your hands somewhere comfortable and at rest. And then you do want to have, decent posture, just so again, you don't find yourself in a couple of minutes like, oh, my neck hurts because of the way I held it for this. Okay. Great note in the chat box before we get started. I want to thank you, Julie, for mentioning, I hope no one walks by my office and thinks I fell asleep. You've done so many of these workshops for executives and other staff around the country, and a lot of people will say, like, I live in a glass bowl, there's windows everywhere. So there's just a couple invitations for you. If you like, you could turn away from your windows so people can't see you. You could shut your door if you have a door that you can shut. You can put up a do not disturb sign. I know executives have started to do meditation regularly after participating in these kinds of workshops, and they would have like, I'm in meditation sign on their door, for their 10 minutes or 5 minutes that they took that little break. All right, so there's some options for you there. Or you can just say, hey, I was doing a workshop with Wendy. So here we go. I'm going to guide you through. I'm going to get my timer started. Again, we're just going to do 3 minutes. And I'll walk you through it. And I'm going to invite you to start with a few deep breaths, just because they can help to calm your mind and your body, but it's up to you if you want to do them. If you feel comfortable doing those, please feel free. If not, you don't have to. All right, I'm assuming everyone's ready. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so closing your eyes or casting them downward, sitting in a nice comfortable position, but one where you're upright so you can have some mental alertness for this. Hands resting comfortably. And now I invite you all to take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose if you like. And exhaling, relaxing and releasing any tension you might be feeling. Another long, slow, deep breath in. And exhaling, relieving any stress. Another one on your own. And now allowing your breathing to return to its natural rhythm. And it's whatever that rhythm is for you today. It might be faster or slower, shallower or deeper. Just allowing your body to breathe on its own. And now seeing if you can bring your attention to where you feel sensations of breathing in your body. Maybe you feel some swirling or coolness in your nose. Maybe you feel the air going down your throat or into your chest or abdomen. Notice where you feel the breath leaving your body. Getting curious about your breathing. And if your mind is wandering off to thinking about things, planning, remembering, just notice that and then bring your attention back to your breathing. Where you feel sensations of breathing in your body. Maybe noticing where you feel the sensations the strongest. And holding your attention there. And if you notice your mind starting to wander, just gently noticing it and then bringing your attention back to your breathing. Training your mind to be where you want it. Now taking a couple deeper breaths. You can open your eyes if you had them closed. Maybe wiggle your fingers or toes if you like. That was actually 4 minutes. So we went over by a minute. I'm going to invite you all back. So, looking for you all here. Does your mind need a lot of training? What happened? How did it go? Was your mind, were you able to actively sustain your attention on your breathing, or did you notice that your mind was wandering off? What was that like and how do you feel? So I see a fabulous thank you. Thank you for that note. I appreciate that. Who else would be willing to share either verbally with the group what that was like, or put a note in the chat box? Anybody feel more relaxed as a result of that just under 4 minutes of focusing on your breathing? Anybody feel more relaxed? Okay, I'm starting to see more notes coming in the chat box. Thank you. I'm staying very relaxed. Very nice. Was it hard or was it easy to keep your attention on the breath? I love this. I didn't think my mind was wandering until you reminded me. Thank you. That's what those prompts are for, and why guided meditation can be so helpful, because we don't notice that our mind is wandering. We don't notice that we're in that autopilot. Our mind is just doing its thing. And so then when we get a prompt, it's like, my mind is somewhere else. Let me bring it back. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, got a knock on the door and then they entered without without response. Okay. Oh, hi, David. Welcome. Yeah, thank you for that note. I see challenging to stay focused, but it feels good when you're able to stay focused. I mean, that is the beauty of this, even very short practice. You know, it is normal to have the mind wander. And that's why we try to celebrate that if we notice the mind has wandered off, that we just can celebrate, we noticed, and then bring it back, right? And when you're able to bring your attention and just keep it on that one thing, right, on the present moment, there's a sense of ease and relaxation. You know, and even 4 minutes here, you know, many of you are saying that you feel more relaxed. Now, it's possible to feel more stressed after 4 minutes because you start to notice how often your mind is wandering, and then that can feel stressful, like, wow, my mind is really on its own here. But most people, even after a very short period, will feel more relaxed. And that can bring us a lot of hope, right? Because can you find 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes in your day at some point to just, you know, take a little bit of time to just come to the present moment, to breathe, right? To focus on your breathing, to do a little mindful breathing exercise. I mean, I know people that have done it in their car before they go into work, or they do it in their car before they go home. You know, this is when we're going in and out for those that are still going into Y facilities. Others that do it literally on just little micro breaks during the day. I'm just going to shut my door for a few minutes and just breathe. There are many Y executives who have brought a mindful minute to the beginning of their meetings. And so they're saying, you know, we're just going to take 1 minute to just breathe. Just notice your breathing. I'll just time it. And it helps people get more centered, focused, right? Calm down, get out of their mind and worries about all the things that are going on in their departments and in their life, right? And to just become more present and centered and more relaxed and less stressed. So if this is something that feels good for you and something like you might want to do again, then a question for you is, can you build this into your day in some way? And what does that look like for you? Some people wake up and first thing in the morning, they do a little meditation. Some might do it before they go to bed. Lots of ways to think about it. I'm working with a YMCA right now in Texas that we just sent out a calendar request for every Tuesday at noon to join in for a guided meditation. And so it's literally on everybody's work calendars. And I know a number of other companies that do that with their staff. So there's ways to build this into your day to give yourself a little bit more of that, you know, relief from the stress, from the craziness, from the thoughts and the swirling and everything else, right? And to just become more centered and present. So I'd look for some notes in the chat box. How many of you think that you might want to build some just short practices into your day, or maybe you already have and you can share in the chat box how you might be building those in? Anybody have any ideas about how they might like to build in maybe just some short relief from stress into your day? All right, so I'm seeing there's some guided meditations by the Honest Guys on YouTube. Love it. Yeah, there's lots of guided meditations out there. You can use apps, you can use websites. If you just search University Mindfulness, there's so many free guided meditations from many different universities. Some are doing it, yeah, okay, every morning for 10 minutes when they wake up. Beautiful. I had a mindfulness teacher years ago who would say, sorry for the graphic language here, he'd say, RPM, rise, pee, meditate. So get up, go to the bathroom, come back and just do, you know, a quick meditation. Yeah, thank you for these examples. Please keep them coming in. All right. So another way that we can be mindful and that we can really practice being mindful is through mindful listening. And so this last half hour, 40 minutes of our session today, we're going to talk about mindful listening and what it looks like, and we're going to actually try it out. But I want to offer that mindful listening is, of course, something that we can do with everyone in our life, right? We can think of every conversation that we have, and we can ask ourselves, am I being, you know, fully mindful and fully present and really listening When I'm with my staff, my supervisor, when I'm with the members, am I really fully present, or am I thinking, gosh, I really have to get to that meeting right now and I can't believe this member is still talking, right? That's not mindful listening, okay? With colleagues, with your kids, your partner, your spouse, your other family members, with your friends, with your neighbors. Lots and lots of opportunities to practice mindful listening. But in the spirit of healing and of you know, bringing people together in the why, I'd like us to share, to just kind of talk a little bit about mindful listening when it comes to people who hold different views than we hold. So how do we listen mindfully when we're talking to somebody who's just on another page, on a different page? And why do we want to do that, right? Why would we want to do that? And so these next few slides, for some of you, are really going to be a test of your mindfulness, because there's going to be some statistics and some research here. And can you stay fully present and fully listening, mindfully listening to me as I talk you through some of these statistics? I hope that they're going to be intriguing enough that you'll want to pay attention anyway. But polarization in our country and othering, right? Thinking that someone else is not like me, they're just so different. And so having this othering, this dehumanizing that's going on, are at record high levels in our country. And they have been for a while. And, you know, in recent years have been even getting worse. So Pew Research, they do a lot of national research. If you're not familiar, check them out. Lots of great data that you can find. But I want to share some data from 2 specific studies. Check this out. A majority of members of both political parties surveyed say that the members of the other party are closed-minded and very cold. A majority feel that way about people of another political party, right? Republicans and Democrats are the 2 major parties that they were looking at here. Now look at this, more than 80% of both Republicans and Democrats state they're very or somewhat concerned about this rise in partisanship and divisiveness, right? So think about this for a moment, right? Majority of the people in both parties believe the other party is closed-minded and very cold, but they're concerned that that's the case, right? That this is happening, that we're getting more divided and more partisan in the way that we interact with each other. Only 21% of Americans, and this is from this year's research, the other one was last year before the election, okay, only 21% actually believe that relations are going to get better in the coming year between the 2 parties. That's only 1 out of 5. And so part of a question for us is, why do we want to listen mindfully? Do we want to do something about these statistics? Do we care? Do we care that people believe that people of other political parties are closed-minded and very cold? You know, do we care? Do we personally care that there's rising partisanship and divisiveness in this country, and that very few people, 1 out of 5, actually think that it's going to get better? So this is just the beginning of just sort of, you know, asking you to think about whether listening mindfully to somebody who has a different view than you could be useful. Now, other research shows, and I have the source at the bottom if you want to check it out, that as a result of the country's widening ideological views, where we're getting more polarized, we are doing more of certain things. One thing that we're doing more of is protesting, voting, and joining political movements. So from that perspective, it's actually very healthy that this is healthy for our democracy and important for us. But here's what else we're doing more of: more disrespecting each other and more shutting each other out. Have you noticed on social media or in conversations about politics, especially that, or about particular policies or views, that we're disrespecting each other? People are disrespecting each other more, or just shutting each other out, avoiding, not wanting to talk to each other, right? Not wanting to listen. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk to you. I'm just not going to, right? Here's another thing we're doing. We're dismissing the potential flaws in our own views and dismissing the possible merits in other people's views, because we're just saying, don't want to talk about it, don't want to see that there's any merits in your view, and I don't want to see that there's any flaws in my own view. So this is something that we're doing more of. This one I think is very interesting. We're overestimating the extremity of our own party and the other party's views. So what they found is that we actually believe on the whole that the gap between my view and your view is actually twice what it actually is. We believe that those gaps are wider than they are. And part of the reason of this is because of social media, that the people who are on the more extreme ends of the left and right side tend to be more vocal. And it makes it seem like we're farther apart than most people are, that this gap is bigger. And then one more thought here, that we're perceiving these differences in moral values between us to be vast. When surveyed, people largely endorse the same core values in both parties: care, fairness, not harming people, and so on. So on the whole, these are the types of things that are happening as a result of this continual widening of these views and the polarization. So again, a question for us: how important is this? Do we care that we're shutting people out, disrespecting each other? Do we care that we're not able to see the flaws in our own views or the merits of other views? Do we care that we think that we're farther apart than we actually are, or that our moral values are so different when they actually aren't? So this is just an invitation again to why mindful listening could be useful. I hope you're with me here. I got one more page of statistics, and then I'm going to invite you all, hopefully, to try some mindful listening here. Americans are feeling the harmful impacts of this polarization. So some research out of University of Nebraska-Lincoln after the 2016 election, and I'm curious to see what will happen after this election, right? Showing that nearly 40% of Americans said that politics were stressing them out. Now, you think 40%, oh, what is that really, of adults and so on? And the estimate is about 94 million people are getting stressed out from politics. This is a huge number of people. How about this? 30% of people said they lost their temper as a result of politics. 20% report losing sleep or losing friendships over politics. And then 11.5% have said that politics are adversely affecting their physical health. This is not to mention the impacts on our democracy, on the ability for us to pass policies in our country, right, and all the other impacts. So I want to ask you to just be mindful for a moment of your own reactions to politics, and think for a moment, have you felt stressed out at all by politics? Are you willing to share in the chat box or put your thumb up in the participant panel? I'll say there have been some aspects of politics that have stressed me out. Have you felt like you've lost your temper or gotten angry as a result of something you heard? Anything related to politics? I have, right? I mean, this is the reality for many of us. Have you felt like you've lost friendships or lost sleep over politics? Not as many people feel this way, but some are losing those friendships, right? Because we're getting so far apart. Have you felt like it's affected your physical health, your sleep, right? Your ability to just don't function and thrive. Thank you for these notes coming in, and the chat box. Yeah, I mean, we should care, right? Julie is saying, if it's not possible for us to come together, then, if we think that it's not possible, then less people will even try. And I'm seeing other people saying, yeah, I'm mostly stressed out about the members and staff who are stressed out about politics. This is the reality. This is the reality of our day. Yeah, and too stressful to watch the news. Yeah, I'll just share a quick story. My sister never really been that into politics. And this year she decided to get into the election, right? And on election night, multiple times throughout the night, she said to me, this is really stressful. Like, she was so surprised that she was so stressed about this, and it was multiple times where I'm like, well, maybe you should turn it off and watch, a Hallmark movie or something, and she's like, and she just kept it on. That's the other piece of this, right? We get caught into it and we're kind of on autopilot sometimes, right? With watching the news and keeping involved with politics to the point that it's really causing us to be stressed. And that was the case for her. She just kept watching it, but she kept telling me, this is really stressful. So, do we care about the fact that this is the reality for many, many Americans in the country today? that politics is stressful. People are feeling angry, losing their temper, right? Losing friendships, losing sleep, not feeling like they can thrive. So, as Y leaders, do we want to help bridge these divides and lessen these impacts? Is this a role that the Y could play? Well, we bring people of all different backgrounds and belief sets and ideologies into our YMCAs. The reality is that this is part of our mental and emotional well-being. And it's also part of our ability to have a functioning democracy, right? And to be able to work together to find ways that we can move forward. So if we think that it's important, mindful listening is a very, very small but first step in perhaps starting to bridge these gaps. So anybody want to make a note in the chat box? What do you think? Is this important? Is this something that the Y should play a role in? Having us be able to have a different kind of dialogue, a different kind of bridging between these divides? Anybody want to offer, just share something verbally with the group? Anybody intrigued by the possibility of doing this? All right, well, I'll look for your notes to come in. I hope you all are still with me. No one seems to be chiming in quite yet, but thank you for the note. Oh, the Youth in Government program. What a great note here. I love how the Youth in Government teaches teens to focus on people and not politics. And I wish that we did something similar with adults. Yes. Can we get along as we facilitate the process for others? Yeah, these are really good questions. So I want to offer that we can listen more mindfully, and that this may be a place that we could think about starting. And if we think that it's important for our communities, could it be something that we bring to ourselves and to our staff first? I'm working with a Y in New York and doing a number of interviews with them to help them with some culture work. And one of the things I'm finding is that their leaders have a lot of different views about politics, and it is causing a certain amount of stress and a certain amount of people not feeling valued, and that their opinion matters, or that their concerns matter in their YMCA. This is the staff team. Is this prevalent for your Y? Is there a possibility that that this is happening? So could we start to listen more mindfully to each other? And so I want to invite you to think about some of these ways of listening. And then, of course, these apply to any kind of listening, not just when it comes to politics. But here's some ideas for ways that we could listen more mindfully. Instead of shutting people out or disengaging, avoiding, or getting ourselves really angry and stressed out when we're having these conversations, we could do this. Give our full attention and be fully present with the other person. Hanging in there, even when something is hard to hear, So this is part of it, because sometimes we just start tuning people out. It is a question for you that only you know. Do you start tuning people out when you start to hear someone from the other side, the othering that we're doing, right? Talking about their views, right? Can we hang in and really be fully present? Can we listen with curiosity and an intent to better understand their perspective, right? With this intention of curiosity and seeking to understand, just that, and not speaking or interrupting, right? Cutting them off and things like this. So can we silently notice? So this is where our mindfulness comes in of ourself, right? What's happening with us as we're listening? Can we notice our thoughts, our reactions, our memories that are coming up, the emotions that might be coming up, the impulses that we have to interrupt or to say, yeah, but that's, right? So can we silently notice that? And then we notice that we start to think and plan what we're going to say, and right, and start to feel a certain way, that we bring our attention fully back to the other person. So it is about being mindful and present, curious and seeking to understand. It's about the other person when we listen mindfully, not about ourselves. So you have to notice, be able to notice what's happening in ourselves, like notice when our mind is wandering off the breath, right? We have to notice what's happening, but then be able to bring our attention back to the other person. Otherwise, we just get caught up in our own planning what we're going to say and our own reactions and our own emotions. Yeah? And can we let go of that need we have and the habit, the autopilot, frankly, that we have to formulate our debate points in our head, right? We're scanning what they're saying to figure out what you want to say back about that, right? Or looking for a lie that they're saying, or some ill intent, or their ignorance, right? We're looking for these negative things and figuring out how we're going to debate. Instead, can we let go of that need to formulate this point or reply, right? And listen with curiosity to seek to understand, with full attention on the other person, and try to see that person as a complex tapestry. And what I mean by that is each one of us as a human being is like a tapestry, a very complex and beautiful tapestry. There are many things in our lives that have caused our tapestry to look the way it has at this point in our lives, right? So many influences: our family, our upbringing, our friends, our schooling, the types of news we watched or our family watched, the books that we read. A lot of these things go in, right, to each one of us that creates this tapestry of how we look today. And the things that are continually in our lives as influences continue to either have that tapestry continue to look the way it does, or perhaps start to erode away at certain parts of that tapestry. And each of our tapestries, we have the rough sides, right, and the threads that are falling out. But this is the reality that each of us has this unique tapestry. When we are mindfully listening, we can listen with this lens of really trying to understand, to be curious about what somebody's tapestry is, right? How did they become the way that they are today? How did they get this way, right? Especially for someone who has different views. And what is it in their life that might be continuing to contribute to that tapestry, right? Are they watching YouTube videos? Are they, watching CNN, or were they watching Fox? Are they, paying a lot of attention to social media or not, as examples, right? So we're all in this place of having this tapestry. When we listen mindfully, we listen with this lens of saying, let me seek to be curious and to understand. Let me see this person as a complex tapestry, not as a very, familiar with the fundamental attribution error. Anybody? I would love to know if any of you are, if you can put it in the chat box. But it's this idea that a lot of times we reduce people. This othering, this dehumanizing is because we reduce people to something very simple. Yeah, Republican or Democrat. And we believe that, that people are something very simple rather than something complex. And when someone does something wrong, make a mistake or have a flaw, sometimes we just start to think of them in terms of that, right? They're just a bad person, or they're just a negative person, right? And so we reduce them. And the thing is, when we make a mistake or we have a flaw, we still see that we're a very complex human being with a lot of different, strengths and weaknesses. And we don't think of ourselves as, a bad person or criticize ourselves in that way. But we do that with others. And it's fun. It's called fundamental attribution error. It's where you start to see some issue as someone's personality and who they are, instead of something that there's a lot of different factors that have caused that person to be, to have made that mistake or to be that way. So we do this a lot. This is how this dehumanization process tends to happen, is through this fundamental attribution error. Anyway, this is related to the tapestry, right? Because it's like, let's see people as more complex and less reducing them down to something that is really not perhaps true. Okay, I'm going on for too long here, and I want to make sure that you all get to your mindful listening. And you're not going to talk about politics, by the way, so you don't have to worry about that. But I just wanted to invite you that these are some of the ways that we can listen more mindfully, and listen with a lens, again, of curiosity and of seeking to understand, and not trying to debate and, that kind of thing. So do you want to try a mindful listening exercise? What do you all think? I'm curious. Let's see if there's any chat notes. Again, you're not going to talk about something controversial, so you don't have to worry about that. And we're gonna put you into breakout rooms where you get to just talk to one other person and answer a question. So I'm looking to see if you all are open. I see 2 people are open so far. Are others of you open to trying a mindful listening exercise? Okay, more notes are coming in. Thank you for that. I don't want to force you all into doing this, but again, it's not going to be painful, I assure you. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Very good, very good. All right. And thank you. Is it Derek that mentioned, I think, creating space for reconciliation and grace and building capacity to see other perspectives and listen is so essential. I know I need to build those goals personally. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Let us see the complexity. Let's see the various perspectives and how people have arrived at them. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Okay, so with that, we're going to try a mindful listening exercise. And I don't know if it's Derek or Lisa might be helping with breakouts in a moment, not quite yet. Here's what's going to happen. You'll be broken up into pairs and you'll decide who's going to speak first. There's going to be a list of 4 questions. You choose one question that you want to answer. And my request of you is that you choose 2 different questions. You don't each answer the same question. So if you can, please choose 2 different questions. Okay. So one person answers one question and one person answers another question. You're each going to have 2 minutes to answer your question, the one that you selected. Okay. The other person is going to practice mindful listening during that 2 minutes. And again, as a reminder of what mindful listening is, it's bringing your full attention, hanging in there, even if you're hearing something that's hard to hear, having that curiosity and seeking to understand, noticing your own internal landscape. What's going on inside you as you hear it? Are you starting to have thoughts, reactions, impulses, emotions, doubting, looking for problems with what they're saying or anything like that, right? Noticing and then bringing your attention fully back to the other person. Resisting any urge to formulate a reply or a response, because you will not reply to the other person in any way aside from saying thank you for sharing. Okay? You're not going to reply in any way. It's just a listening exercise. And then seeing if you can see this person as a tapestry, as a complex and unique tapestry that has gotten to the way they are as a result of many different influences in their life. And these questions, again, are going to be pretty harmless. You're just going to be hearing about people's experiences. All right. Again, after each round, you're just going to thank each other for sharing or for listening. And that's it. Please, no advice, no telling them comments and thoughts about what they said. That's mindful listening isn't about you. It's about them. You can take a photo of this. I can't remember if Zoom allows you to see the slide when you go into the breakout rooms. You can take a photo of this right now with your phone if you want to refer back to these qualities of mindful listening. I'll give you another 10 seconds to do that. I see Derek actively taking the photo. Thank you, Derek. And all right. And then now what's going to be on the screen, hopefully for you, though I would encourage you to take a photo of this as well, is going to be the questions you can choose from. You can choose from these 4 questions. What has been challenging for you about how you or your family has personally been impacted by COVID-19? What is a core value you learned from your parents or your caregivers as a child that still holds true for you today? What role has the support of a specific community in your life? It could be a faith community, a sports team, a music team, some community that you're part of. What role has that community played in your life and helped shape who you are today? And perhaps this one is going to be a no-brainer for some of you. What is the most challenging aspect of why work for you right now during COVID-19? So you're just going to be sharing personal stories, right? You're just going to be sharing personal stories. And the other person is just going to be mindfully listening and doing all the things that we just said, okay? So of course, be respectful. I can't imagine that won't happen here. And resist the urge you might have to interrupt someone, to give them advice or reply in any way, aside from saying thank you at the end, okay? So that's the plan. Everybody got a photo of this if you need it? And we're gonna send you into breakout rooms right now. Yeah, Derek, or who's doing that one?
It'll be me, I can do that.
Thank you.
So just give us a moment. We're going to go ahead and try to get in. We've had a few people that have left. So if you end up in a room by yourself, just give me a moment and I'll reassign you. So if you haven't already been part of breakout rooms with Zoom, you'll be invited to a room and you'll just click on it and then it'll send you there. And then probably about a minute or so before we're going to go ahead and bring everybody back in, it'll remind you about that. So I'm going to go ahead and click the button and get us in there.
You all will have 6 minutes, 2 minutes each. So a minute to get oriented and 2 minutes each to share. And then we'll be asking you all to come back. Okay? Thank you all. Go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
I think we're good. I think we got them all in there.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have one person who's by themselves because the other person hasn't joined. So I don't know if I can move myself into there. So can I move them into well, I'll move this person here. That could do that. And I'll move them into 3. Okay. Yeah, there's one person that's not there, so.
Okay.
Good. I'm going to try to do something right now. We wanted to highlight you. Oh, 1 second.
Hope you all had a chance to share your 2 minutes, and I want to just take a couple of minutes now to debrief with you. So how did you do with mindful listening? What was it like to listen mindfully? Would anybody be willing to share with the group? And of course, I'll be looking for chat box messages as well. Were you able to stay fully present? Were you able to be curious and to really seek to understand what somebody else's experiences and perspectives are? Were you able to resist that temptation to interrupt or to give advice or to say something back? What was it like for you all?
I do believe that people have availability to unmute themselves at this point. I think so. If a couple people want to give a try, we could do that.
That'd be wonderful. Would anyone be willing to share? You can unmute. What was it like to listen mindfully? How did it go? Do you need a lot of practice with it? Were you able to notice the thoughts and emotions or reactions that might be coming up in you as you were listening? Were you able to notice those things? All right. Starting to see some chat box messages. Enjoyed listening and being present in the moment. Thank you. Yeah, great. Would anyone be willing to share?
It was nice to listen, and I don't think I wanted to give advice, but I wanted to hear more about her story.
Nice. So it sounds like you really got into the curiosity of it, right? Of really wanting to understand. Yeah. Beautiful.
Wendy, I felt the same. It wasn't hard because it was such a personal one-on-one conversation. So it was easy to focus, though I do find myself, if there's multiple conversations, I will want to multitask. But it was, I wanted to ask questions, and yet it was easy enough because it was a compelling story to stay with it.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Very nicely said.
Thank you. I'm seeing focusing was interesting and the curiosity was almost a drawback. Oh, because you wanted to ask for more information, Julie. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. You really wanted to know more. And now we can do a whole series on mindful dialogue another time, right? I mean, this, when you get into the actual conversation, is a whole nother piece of being able to bring mindfulness and compassion, right? And care to these conversations. This is just the listening piece. And so, yeah, part of mindful dialogue is continued curiosity, right? Is asking those good questions that help you see the person as a more complex human being, right? As a tapestry, to really understand how they became the way they are, how they see the world, you know, and what types of things are influencing them, and what their struggles are, and so on, right? Well, thank you for that. Any other thoughts on this? How did it feel to be listened to in this way? How did it feel to have someone listening to you sharing for these 2 minutes in this mindful way? What did it feel like? Was it good? Was it helpful? Did you like it? What did you think? Would anyone be willing to share with the group? You can unmute yourself. Looking for notes in the chat box too.
I will share.
Thank you, Julie. You're very generous.
It was very nice to know that I had someone's undivided attention, but it was also a little bit of pressure. And now I think I'm going to be aware of that. Like when you're talking to somebody and they're really paying attention, the pressure is on you almost to make your conversation worthy of their attention. You know, you want to make sure you're giving them worthwhile information and that the investment they're making in you is worth their effort.
Oh gosh, yes. How nice, right? To have someone's undivided attention, to have someone be so fully present. And then, you know, and that's something you can notice within yourself if you're like, gosh, now I feel the pressure to say something worthy or say something interesting, right? Yeah. Yeah. Part of the mindfulness, right? We can be compassionate with ourselves in those moments also, you know. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I see another note in the chat box that felt nice. Somebody repositioned their chair to move closer to the camera, and it seemed like she really cared. I mean, these are the things that you are saying are exactly what we hope to get out of mindful listening, right? This is where people hopefully are really caring for you as you're sharing, right? Or we're really caring for others. You know, and that body language and being closer and giving the full undivided attention. You know, we see people and care for them as full human beings, right? And not just reducing them, dehumanizing them as just somebody who just has this different viewpoint. And it feels really good. And this is part of this humanizing is what helps to bring us closer together. So I'd encourage you to keep those chat box notes coming in, but we do have to wrap it up because we are at the end of our 90 minutes. So I would like to invite each of you, if you would be willing to share in the chat box, what is one way that you might like to be more mindful in your life right now? And this could be anything we talked about. You know, taking some time to breathe, being more present with family, you know, doing more mindful listening. You know, it could be anything. One thing that, you know, mindful driving, you know, I've had people say, there's one thing I took away from the workshop. It was that I need to be more mindful with my driving because I'd hurt someone if I'm not more mindful. So mindful eating. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, and part of it is when we're on autopilot, eating the whole bag of popcorn or chips or whatever it is, right? So there's some benefits to mindful eating in terms of the ways that we eat too, which we didn't even talk about today. But that can be really special to just dedicate our focus and attention to that. Get back to regular mindful meditation, more meditation. I love this. Daily reflection, self-time, me time, regular routine. What a nice time to be reflecting on this, right? Because this is something that we can set some intentions around now as we go into the new year, into what will hopefully be a much better year, 2021. Mindful listening, formulating a response before I hear the full opinion of the person. Yeah. Making sure I'm not on autopilot. 5-second breathing during that moment. Yes, yes, yes. Love it. Thank you all so much. Please keep those notes coming in. I want to thank Lisa and Derek and the planning committee again immensely for inviting me to be with you. It's been really a pleasure. Thank you all for contributing and speaking and chat box messaging. It makes it a much more interactive and enjoyable experience, I think, for everyone. I wish you all much ease. I wish you, a lot of mindfulness in these coming weeks and months. Hope that you can bring some of these ideas back to your staff teams. Of course, reach out to me if I can help you. We're working with a number of WISE around the country on mindfulness, different types of workshops and programs. It's really needed right now. And if you want to reach out, you can email me, call me. My website's there. It's a little rough, but there's also these one-on-one sessions. I have some time over the next couple of hours. If you go into the conference platform, there's a way to book a one-on-one session. I don't know how I get notified, maybe through an email, but we can find that out. If you want to spend 15 minutes to brainstorm, or if you have any questions that you might want to ask about any of this, feel free to schedule a 15-minute session or just email me and we'll find a time to chat. So with that, thank you again. Thanks, Lisa and Derek, for supporting this session. Thank you all for participating.